Go ahead, Claudia. Then we got Claudia Thomas, ladies and gentlemen, and her show is called Claudia and Friends, and she is an incredible lady that keeps the team together, the communicator for 9-11 rescueworkersandfriends.org, and it's a pleasure to have her, and this is her 5th Claudia and Friends show. And her show airs at 8 a.m. Central Time on ReaganRadioNetwork.com and Lake of the Ozarks Radio.com. Okay, Claudia, you got the floor.
Great, thanks. It's good to talk to you folks again. And I wanted to introduce, I have two really special guests with us today from the San Francisco Fire Department. You know, we're talking all the time about how 9/11 was not just a northeastern event, that it was a nationwide event. And we had responders go in from all over the country, including many responders from the San Francisco Fire Department and other Californians. So I thought these folks, Tony Stefani and Vic, and forgive me, Vic, if I say the last name wrong, it's Wyrsch?
It's Wyrsch.
Wyrsch. Okay, that was easier than I thought. So we've got Vic and Tony on. Vic was an actual responder to the World Trade Center after the attacks, along with another team. So I'm just going to go ahead with these guys, and maybe Tony, you could start out and just give a little background, because I know you said you were unable to make it with the other guys back in 2001 because you had been down ill at the time. But maybe you can kind of give the audience an idea of the overall and your involvement.
Sure. At the time 9/11 happened, I was the captain at Rescue 1 in San Francisco, and I was actually recovering through cancer treatment. I had lost a kidney. I had transitional cell carcinoma in my right renal pelvis after being on the job for 27 years. And when the attack happened, I was just finished with treatment and recuperating, and actually made me sick to my stomach because I knew that the condition that I was in, I was not going to be able to respond, but I knew that there would be a response from the city. And Vic Wyrsch, who was at that time, I believe, at Station 3, and about 10 or 11 other firefighters ended up going back.
Great. And Vic, maybe you can pick it up from there and tell us how you got involved and about your team.
Yeah, well, at the time I was a lieutenant, and we were all just chomping at the bit to be able to help. Everybody wanted to get something organized and go, and we realized that that really wasn't going to happen fast enough. So myself and 10 other gentlemen decided to take time off by using trades and vacation days. And as soon as we were able to fly, we flew over there. We actually landed there on the 16th. And we worked for 9 days. We just felt like we really needed to do something, so we all jumped on a plane and went from there.
Can you tell us a little bit more of what you did when you got there and the type of work that you were helping out with and who you were assigned to?
Sure. So as soon as we found a place to stay, we threw our bags in the room, we grabbed our turnout coats, and we made our way to Ground Zero. We hooked up with a member from a USAR team that was able to get us into Ground Zero, and he hooked us up with a couple of battalion chiefs, and the battalion chiefs came and asked to speak to the officers, pulled us aside, and kind of gave us the ground rules of what we're there to do, what we're looking for, and that if we found anything, we're to notify the New York Fire Department, let them do the final recoveries. So we worked all night, every night, basically for 9 days on the pile.
So how many hours were you guys putting in a day then? Sounds like
at least 8 hours, kind of depending on the kind of work we were doing, and there was definitely, we stayed in our own little area. We didn't want to get in anybody else's way. We were trying to be as respectful as we could with the New York firemen. Like I said, if we found an elevator or it looked like a set of stairways, or we found some firefighters' tools, that we would stop, mark it, and get the New York Fire Department involved. We would average around 8 or 9 hours, and we always worked at night and then slept during the day. When we first went there, we started off with just a regular paper mask, no respirators. At the time, we didn't really care about our own safety, so we weren't wearing we wouldn't care about our respirators, didn't wear them a lot. And then every day we went, the respirators got a little bit better. Security got a little more difficult to get in and get involved. And we did that, I would say, for about 7 days, and then some of us stopped working at Ground Zero and started going to some funerals because we felt bad that a lot of these firemen were getting buried and having funerals with nobody attending other than their immediate family. No other firefighters were able to respond or go to the funerals because they were all either at work or working at Ground Zero. So we felt like our job was more important to be going to some funerals.
And you had other fellows from your department that came in for that specific purpose.
Correct. So as soon as it was about time for us to come back, because actually we were told that we were all going to get suspended for going. So after about 9 days, the union told us we better hightail it back. And we started getting other waves of guys came and took over just to go to funerals. So they came out just for the funeral services. Correct.
And when they were coming out, were they more officially tied in with their service coming in? Because I know you guys came in as volunteer, and you, as you just mentioned, you were warned by your union that it wasn't being on.
Yeah, it was. None of it was organized. It was all. Everybody did it on their own time and in their own dime. We paid for it all ourselves and used our own time. We were lucky. We didn't have any issues when we came back because once it hit the newspapers what we had done, a lot of the businesses in San Francisco wanted to. They supported us and they wanted to acknowledge us. So the chief at the time decided not to punish us. So it worked out well, and so firefighters would start going for about 5 days or 6 days on their own, and like I said, just go to funerals.
Take their vacation time to do it. That's what I did also when I went back. I used up my vacation time, went on my own time, my own dime. That's exactly the way I put it too. So we're in unison there. Can you just explain, because not everybody's familiar with the nomenclature of the acronym. So when you say USAR, can you explain what that is?
Urban Search and Rescue. So they sent a lot of teams that would go out there, and of course they were able to get us the security to go in. And San Francisco doesn't have our own Urban Search and Rescue team, so we hooked up with another team, and they made it accessible for us to get in and work security-wise.
Okay, and then your initial team had 11 people, and one of those, of course, was Dan Armenta, and I'd really like to talk a bit about Dan. So that the listening audience knows the type of person that he was. He was one of you that went back on their own time, on their own expense, went back to help out, facing even some flack for it back at their home office, but forged through. And he was just a remarkable man. He was, as I understand it, and correct me anywhere I'm wrong, but he was had been promoted to battalion chief, and had also worked at the San Francisco airport as a police officer. And this just, he was known as a real gentleman and a real leader. He passed away back in 2013 from 9/11 related cancer.
Correct. He was actually a captain, and he did, of course, work at the airport first. And then he was a captain at Station 1 where Tony was a captain, and myself, I ended up being a captain with him on my way up. And an amazing man. He had a family, kids. He left and dropped everything, and his family was extremely supportive of him doing that. But just a very caring, giving, happy gentleman, one of the best guys I knew. It was a huge heartbreaker for us, a huge loss. He had just retired when he contracted cancer and didn't get a chance to enjoy any of the golden years of retirement. It's been very difficult for his friends and family.
And the other members of your team and yourself, as a matter of fact, you're all part of the World Trade Center Health Program, which we're trying to keep funded right now.
Yes, not everybody is. We all should be. We were all made aware of it. Some people, there was a lot of, as you know, people came back and it affected people in different ways. Some people didn't want to go back and relive it. Some people just kind of wanted to move on, I would say, for mental health reasons. And then the rest of us that we're concerned. We get checked every year. We get psychologically, we do an evaluation, then we do a blood test, blood draw, and several other tests, and then we go through a regular physical just to keep up on it, since we know how many cancer-related deaths are happening from responders.
And other illnesses. I know, I believe you were saying you came back with the World Trade Center cough, which seemed to dissipate after a couple of years, but that can always come back to haunt you later on, too.
Correct. A lot of us had that for quite a while. And again, most the typical firefighters just bury it and don't talk about it and don't make a big deal about it. So hopefully the rest of us are going to be safe for a while.
Okay, and then you were back there for, you say, 9 days. And
Correct.
then you were all part, really, basically, the way I understand it, the bucket brigade. You know, you'd go into the pile, you'd be digging through the dirt and getting all that nasty stuff all over you, the dust, and there was, you know, we all know there was over 100 toxins mixed in with that stuff. And so you're breathing that in, you're being exposed to it through your skin and through your lungs. And then when you would come upon remains, you would turn that over to the FDNY out of respect for that organization and being able to pull out their own. Do I understand that correctly?
Correct. That's true. And one of the other negative things was at the time, just out of ignorance and not knowing, San Francisco was never big on cleaning our turnouts. And we came back with our turnouts and hung them back in their lockers at the firehouse in San Francisco, and we still had all that 9/11 dust all over them. And, you know, now we go through a cleaning process every time we have a fire. We send them, we have a couple sets of turnouts. We send one out to be cleaned while we wear the other one. And we call it deconning. We didn't decon when we came back from 9/11 either, just out of not knowing. But now, through Tony's cancer foundation that he has, we have this awareness now, and we wash our skin after a fire, we wash our turnouts after a fire, and we're very conscious now of our exposures.
Yeah, there's been some articles out just recently about firefighters' exposure and cancers, and specifically that the information and research that was done from 9/11 has aided in that forward movement in other departments, you know, staying clean and performing proper detox after any fire.
Correct.
Or any incident that one would respond to.
Correct.
Tony, maybe you can tell us more about your San Francisco Firefighters Cancer Foundation. I know this is there's international chapters all over the world because I read about them all the time, but if you can give us more of an overall idea of what the foundation is about and what kind of work it does, that would be great.
Sure. I put together our foundation back in 2006. At that time, at Station 1, where I worked, where Dan Armenta worked, we had a large incidence of transitional cell carcinoma. 5 firefighters contracted it, and I was one of them. And the doctor that I was seeing at UCSF said that, you know, this is totally unusual. We were at one of the busiest companies in the United States, Station 1. And he said that has to be looked into. And so I put together this nonprofit foundation that's been dedicated to the early detection and prevention of cancer in both our active and retired firefighters. And we've actually been involved in some major published studies. One of them had to do with this high incidence of transitional cell carcinoma, and that was done within the Department of Urology at UCSF. It's a published study, and it did show that we had higher rates of cancer, transitional cell carcinoma, of the genitourinary system, mainly the kidney and bladders of firefighters. And at that time, it was not known. And what our foundation does is we provide screenings for firefighters almost on a yearly basis for this particular type of cancer, and also colorectal cancer, which our rates are fairly high. And we've tried to make gradual changes in the culture of the profession by bringing awareness to the firefighters of the importance of trying to limit the amount of toxic exposures that they're faced with. By wearing the SCBA's which we all know. Any of the video that you visually looked at that had to do with Ground Zero, I don't recall ever seeing one firefighter with a self-contained breathing apparatus on his back. And reason being, the situation was almost impossible to have that type of equipment on. Even though it's a protective type of equipment, the firefighter who would wear something like that in a situation like that would be taking a big risk because of the probability of getting hurt themselves because of lack of visibility, lack of communication. And the type of exposures the firefighters had, you had mentioned it, they had exposures that would definitely deal with inhalation, ingestion, and dermal exposures, all of them very serious, and all of them compounded by the amount of chemicals that they were exposed to, just absolutely horrendous. So going from a working fire into a situation like that, it's hard to say how bad that situation was exacerbated by the amount of chemicals that they were exposed to, and nobody really knows how these chemicals work in combination. And I've talked to some epidemiologists who say, when you get chemicals like furans and dioxins and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and polybrominated diphenyl ethers, all these chemicals, when they act and they combine together, can actually, the toxicity levels can go up, and these rare forms of cancer that we're seeing based from 9/11 are occurring. So back to the foundation, it's really important, and the thing that we stress right now is the knowing that you're being exposed every time you walk into a burning building, and taking the precautions that are necessary to hopefully keep you healthy down the line. And even though firefighters are wearing the protective equipment, some of these exposures still occur. Some of these chemicals have the ability to permeate the equipment that the firefighters are wearing. Dermal exposures are still occurring, and with an unregulated chemical industry, we've got a big problem.
And you guys, for the most part, I remember back when I was a firefighter, we wore SCBAs, and we had, the turnout gear and all kinds of protective equipment. But when you're working at an area like the World Trade Center, or even coming back from an incident in your own home area, if you're not cleaning that turnout gear, and you're not taking those other precautions even after return, cleaning up the SCBA and everything else, everything can hold on to those toxins, correct?
Absolutely, and that's a big change in the profession right now, where this decon is happening after every working fire, not only with the equipment, but the firefighter going back to the firehouse and immediately showering and putting on fresh clothes, not taking these decontaminated articles to their house, back home with them, and trying to get everything situated and cleaned at the firehouse itself, or having the turnout equipment sent out to be cleaned at a facility and then worn once they're clean. So that part of the profession is changing. It's something that will benefit the firefighters in the long run.
Well, that's an important point right there too, because a lot of people don't think about how we're bringing this stuff back home. We take it back into our houses, and now our spouses, our kids, everybody else in the house is going to be exposed to the same toxins. Maybe not quite at the same level, but doesn't mean they're not going to get sick from it. And we actually have several spouses right now that have been talking to me that are experiencing cancers that are akin to the same types of cancers that we're seeing in our responders from the World Trade Center. And so that's another area that really needs to be looked at, are those what I guess we would call secondary exposure. But it was taking that stuff home. I used to do the same thing back when I was a firefighter. I had my turnouts in a bag, and I served on 2 different departments, and in one department I kept everything in a bag. I took it home. It was always there. I'd wash it in my own machines and stuff at home. And this most departments, such as a large department like San Francisco, certainly have their own wash stations and different areas where they do their own turnout gear, the hose lines and the SCBAs and all of this. But for a lot of other departments, they're taking this stuff home, and they continue to take it home. And so it's an important message that you're getting out, and making sure this stuff is clean. Don't take it home with you. Shower before you even leave the station. Set up some cleanup areas so you're not taking this stuff home.
Exactly, and I was going into the department, but when I entered San Francisco Fire Department in 1974, we never cleaned our turnouts. You wear them till they were just turn into a rag.
Yeah.
And you didn't even want to give them up then because, you know, it was the badge that you wore, proud that, you know, and people saw you when you responded to a fire that, you know, this guy looks like he's a beat-up hobo with equipment that's shot, but that would just, you know, let the firefighters that you work with know that you were working at a busy firehouse. And it's, you know, it was a badge of honor to be wearing that type of stuff. But now with what we know and what has been proven, it's foolish to do that.
Yeah, amen, amen. Now I want to ask you both this question because when we were at the site, we all know that we were lied to about the toxins. I'm guessing, Vic, you were aware of that we kept being told that the air was safe and all this kind of thing. Do you see that New York is or what happened on the East Coast is an East Coast event, that 9/11 was an East Coast event? How do you see it?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I know people responded from all over the country, and it's definitely not just an East Coast event. I know that Danny Armenta was affected by it, and I know there's people all over this country that are affected by it, not just the East Coast.
And Tony, I know you weren't there, but certainly you're seeing it from that other aspect as a professional firefighter out in California.
Absolutely. You know, in one respect, it was an East Coast event because of location, and that's the only way it was an East Coast event. And it affected the entire New York City Fire Department. We all know that. But it did also affect quite a few firefighters throughout the country. So, you know, if you look at the full picture, it was something that affected the profession throughout our country.
And a lot of different professions. You know, we had volunteers going in from all over the country, from Red Cross, Salvation Army, construction workers. A lot of folks went in there, other law enforcement agencies, and of course the firefighters. So there was so many different persons involved in doing things back there. Now, currently, the last report that we have available through the World Trade Center Health Program, which was late 2014, showed that in California alone, there were 475 responders that were in the health program. Now, Vic even hit on this before. Not all of his guys have registered for the World Trade Center Health Program. So you could almost at least double that number, or darn close. You know, you probably have 900, 1,000 responders just from California.
Absolutely, and what that too totally makes sense. You know, a lot of the firefighters that came back wanted to cut the tie right there. They didn't want to prolong this by, you know, being looked at, and it was not something that they wanted to continue to remember. And, you know, being screened and checked every year would have, you know, that type of psychological effect again, where everything's back at ground zero again.
So you think that's probably a pretty fair estimate, you know, and we're just talking general responders, so I'm not sure what their numbers included, but I would think that's anybody, Red Cross, firefighters, police, everybody that responds from California. I think 1,000 is probably a pretty fair estimate, would you?
Yes. I was going to say that I believe there's only 4 out of the original 11 are registered. And
Wow.
And again, the other members, when we came back, we got acknowledged by, like I said, some local businesses in the newspaper, and we didn't want that. We didn't want anybody to know, but somebody had leaked it out, it had gotten out, and we came back. Again, they were trying to give us accolades, and that was the last thing we wanted. We wanted to come back, and we wished we didn't have to rehash it and re-talk about it, and we didn't really want to pat it. We definitely didn't want to pat on the back, so that when we found out about this responder network, some guys just shied away from it because they just wanted it to go away, and so it was just basically out of embarrassment. But there's just 4 of us right now, and I'm one of them, and I'm glad I'm doing it just to keep on top of it, because that's the whole key to this horrible disease is early detection.
Amen. Amen. Well, you know, and I've said on several occasions, you know, 9/11 didn't stop murdering on 9/11. We're still losing folks all the time. We lost 2 again this week, both from the fire department in New York. Both young, both lives cut short the day before Thanksgiving. We lost 2 firefighters. We lost Rob Shell, and Jimmy Costello, and they were both FDNY, both to 9/11 cancers. So by you're doing this today, by that word getting out back then, and believe me, I know I'd much rather go the humility route and never have to talk about any of this again. But we have a duty, just like we have a duty as a firefighter or as a medic or in any of these emergency agency programs, we have a duty to act. And our duty to act right now is to speak out for all these people that can't, for people like Dan Armenta, for people like, Rob and Jimmy, who just passed away. Because if we're not doing it, then who will? So I'm very glad the word got out about San Francisco's involvement. And now, one question that one of you, either one, you can pick amongst yourself. Can you help the audience understand what Turnout Gear is? Because not everybody knows our language, our nomenclature.
Sure, it's our protective equipment that we wear. We call it a turnout jacket and turnout pants, and that's basically what's a typical firefighter's uniform that we wear. It's a heat barrier, and again, if you see most of the pictures at 9/11, we just wore our turnout pants, and normally we wore T-shirts because of the heat and being able to work long hours. So we just had suspenders and then of course in New York they call them bunker pants or bunker gear. So it's the typical firefighting gear that we use. And I believe as time went by, more and more different gear was given. I think they use BDUs. And they use a form of it's almost like a military pant, lightweight, and so there's not a lot of protection with those. So and without having our turnout or our firefighter's jacket that we wear, we were just having our turnouts. We had a tremendous amount of skin exposure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you're running around with just the pants and boots.
It was like basically taking a shower and just mud was coming off her body. And I'm lucky because I'm bald, so it was easy to clean my hair. But these guys are coming back and just having to basically, it's like taking 3 showers to get it all out of you. It's just such a fine dust that is embedded in you, and you sweat, and your pores open, the stuff gets absorbed into your skin.
Absolutely. I stayed, when I was serving back there, I stayed at a friend's house. I'm a Jersey girl. And so I stayed over at my friend's house rather than use up one of the rooms that could have been used for other responders coming in for our organization. And she would actually be the one washing the laundry, taking care of all the stuff. And I have long hair, so I don't have that advantage of being bald to where, everything would wash off easy and my hair would just reek of it. If I couldn't, and I'd be so tired, I'd be pulling anywhere from 12 to 18 hours a day down there and then making my way over to Jersey and down to her place, and usually I had somebody giving us rides for that. I'd be so dog tired, and I'd shower and stuff, but then she could still smell it in the sheets, because I'd be up at 6 in the morning getting back over to the site, and she's the one taking care of my clothes, the sheets, all the bedding, and she'd tell me I couldn't stand the smell.
Right. We were lucky. We got to keep our turnout gear, bunker gear at a firehouse, a fire station there. And the guys were wonderful. They actually wanted us to sleep at the firehouse, but we really did not want to make a footprint anywhere around them. But we did leave our gear there. And then when we went to the hotel that we were at, they would take us up the service elevator. They didn't even want us going through the lobby of the house. I mean, they were wonderful, and they found out why we were there. It was a New York City athletic club. They paid for our entire trip. They would refuse to let us pay, but they would take us up the service elevator, and and we made a huge mess.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank all the responders from all over the country and all over the world. We have folks that I'm sure you guys probably ran into. We had teams from France coming in with their search and rescue, canines and everything else, and Canada was huge and coming down to help us out. So we've had this beautiful outpouring of love, that support, that united we stand, and that came from all over the country, all over the world, and somewhere along the line that's kind of got lost on these politicians that we're talking to today about trying to get Zadroga passed and the whole reauthorization thing. But I'll save that for a minute because I want to open this up to Dave and Jeffrey, because I'm sure they must have some questions for you guys.
Well,
Dave, Jeff?
I'm blown away, Claudia, and Tony and Dick, by the number of people. I mean, it's not necessarily, it may have been a little bit organized, but whenever that event took place, the firefighters just went. I'm leaving, I'm going there, and I'm going to go help. And this is what I'm understanding, over 900 people from California. And then you just mentioned people from Canada and every state in the country, plus people from Europe. Probably a few Aussies came in. And I'm just blown away from that. And that hasn't been told, I don't think. Have you heard it, Jeff?
No.
So this is huge, guys. I mean, firefighters, I think every mama wants their daughter to marry a firefighter.
And some of them wanted us to be them.
Our son in Claudia's case. Sorry about that, Claudia. And because the love and care is there to the fullest extent.
You know, my brother's in law enforcement. He's a sergeant detective right now. And when he first joined the police department, and I know my real friends are going to kill me for this one, but, you know, I told him, I said, why don't you join the fire department instead? And he says, well, why would I want to do that? I said, because people like us. We don't write tickets.
That's a good reason.
And they generally
God
win all the basketball
so that you guys
games.
could have heroes.
I mean, that's a huge recruiting point right there. I mean, because they like it. So that's awesome, guys.
Well, it didn't work on him. He went with law enforcement, but I love him anyway.
It's just a unique group of people, and it's, I guess, when you were younger in your early days and you decided that you wanted to be a firefighter, I mean, what was in you at that point? Because now you're in high levels of responsibility now with your trade, but back in the early days, I mean, what were you thinking?
Well, yeah, these guys have the same question, and then I'll go last. Go ahead, Vic and Tony. What drove you to be a firefighter?
Yeah, well, that came, I was in third grade when my dad came to Father Show and Tell, and he was a firefighter, and he came in, and I looked at the way the girls looked at him was the first thing, and I thought, well, I think I want to do what he's doing. But I come from I'm fourth generation firefighter, so I was exposed to it, so I was aware of it, and that's all I thought about, talked about from third grade until I got into the department. And almost 27 years ago.
Wow.
Wow, fourth generation.
Yeah, so cousins, uncles, brother, father, all San Francisco firefighters.
Wow.
Yeah, and then my first day in the fire department, I met Tony. Tony was an instructor at the Division of Training, and he's been my mentor ever since.
Wow. That's impressive. Okay, Tony, was yours something similar?
To a degree, but I made a wrong turn in the beginning. I was a police officer for 2.5 years before I became a firefighter. But then I saw the light. My idea was to be a firefighter from the beginning, but the test that I took back in 1971 ended up being thrown into a court because of problems with hiring practices, and I needed some type of employment at the time, so I ended up going to the police department, and then finally I got my call to go into the fire department. I'm first generation firefighter. So for me, it was a whole new experience for me and my family, but I absolutely loved the job from day one. And my younger son now, who is 36 years old, is a captain in the West Sacramento Fire Department. So he's followed my footsteps. So it's a profession that I would do again, even though I got sick. It's the greatest job in the world. Every time you roll out the doors, you're doing it for one reason, and that is to help somebody. So it's you go home with a smile on your face all the time. There's times where you see things that you remember for the rest of your life that you wish you never saw, but that is part of the profession, and it's still the greatest job going.
Wow.
Great.
That's awesome to hear, guys. You hear about it. Of course, we know the local, I guess they're battalion chiefs, aren't they, Jeff? The one in Osage Beach or community chiefs?
They're just fire district chiefs.
Yeah, and they're really nice, really active in the community. And of course, when there's something going on with Lake Ozark, which is a tiny community, by the way, I mean, they go right by our studio here, and I would say once every other week or so, there's a whole line of them going out somewhere to help somebody somewhere. But there's no questions asked. It's going, and whatever is once they get to the destination. So it's interesting. I hope there's some youth or there's some grandparents out there that will encourage folks to listen to this segment on Claudia's airtime, which is 8 o'clock Central Time on ReaganRadioNetwork.com. And Claudia, here you are. I mean, you're a female, and I'm one of these guys, just so you know, I mean, I'm one of these people deep down in my soul that if a person can do it, they can do it. Why ask who they are? You know, and I realize that men have some extra, the average man has more strength than the average woman, without a doubt, but there's other areas that women can participate in that's a heck of a lot better than what I know I can do. So what brought you what brought you into the firefighter trade?
Well, I know this is going to date me a little bit too, but back in '66, there was a fire in New York. It was the 23rd Street fire. A dozen firefighters were killed. Actually, it was the worst loss of FDNY in the history of the department, that one incident. And I remember that fire. And I remember watching the parade of funerals where they took, I think there was 11 at the time, that they took down Park Avenue or Fifth Avenue in New York for the funerals and stuff. And I thought, you know, and I was a young girl at the time, you know, and I was thinking to myself, what amazing people, you know, to do something like that, you know, and to be so honored and to give so much honor. And I was a little girl. And then a year later, almost to the day, we had a fire over in New Jersey. I claimed 5 firefighters. And so all of that combined with moving into a house that was right next door to a firehouse with old howler systems. I'm sure you all remember those old howlers. That's how you got paged out back in the day. We didn't have pagers back then, so the howler was pointed right at my bedroom window. So I knew every fire that was going on in town. And I'd run down to the firehouse, and they used to write it on a chalkboard, and I'd read where it was, and if it was anywhere where I could get to on foot or on a bicycle, you know, I'd go check it out. So it was always in me. You know, and I remember back then telling even those guys next door, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to be a firefighter. And they said, well, you can't do that. And I said, well, why not? Because you're a girl. Well, that was the final straw. That, if anything, put the final straw over that camel's back, that took care of that. And so I was always determined that this was an area that I wanted to get involved in. Firefighting was always my calling, so from the time, like I say, since I was a little girl. And so when I finally got into it, I eventually became a training officer. I served as the lead fire inspector, fire marshal for a town, and all of that was volunteer. Everything I did in emergency services in that regard. Later on became a medic, nationally registered medic, and also became an instructor for that, on top of being a training officer for fire services. So that was my calling. God helped me do it. I always give credit to him. And being a girl, you know, we might have different upper body strengths for most of us, but we have other ways of handling those hose lines and nozzles, and, you know, we get the job done just the same as a guy can. So some of the old arguments never really did pan out. And by the time I left the department, those that were against me joining the department were coming up to me when I retired and said, you know, I'd go into a fire with you before I wouldn't have the men that I know. You know, that was probably the greatest compliment and gift that I could have been given when I left.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
FDNY inspired me.
Pretty impressive, Claudia. That's you know, some of the nicest people I've met in you know, just in social events, and you end up talking to somebody at a social event and you ask the trade and they go, well, I'm a firefighter. And I'm going, wow, thanks, man. That's giving of yourself no matter what. And of course you're trained and you're safe, but each call, each time that bell rings, that phone rings, or however you get your messages these days, you never know what you're going to be confronted with. And the 2 guys that Claudia had on last week, my goodness, I listened to them again this morning, and And I'm going, man, I mean, they're just, they had death in their
You can
mind.
see, listening to them, as well as people like Vic and Tony here, how easy it was for me to be inspired to be one of them. You know, and I don't even come close. I mean, these guys are big city departments that have handled things that, you know, I've never seen. But they're amazing, every last one of them.
Well, Claudia, you know, ladies and gentlemen, is experiencing would you call it respiratory illness from 9/11, Claudia, or how should I define what you're experiencing?
Well, I certainly started out with the WTC cough, and that, you know, progressed into other areas of upper lung disease and some other areas. But I'm never here to talk about myself. We've got so many people right now that are suffering so much more so, and the cancers are really taking a hold on us. And it's thanks to groups like what Tony is running with the San Francisco Firefighters Cancer Foundation and other like foundations across the country and across the world that are going to help. You know, those lessons hopefully were learned from 9/11 and all of us that have gotten sick. You know, that we can head that off, because we're headed for another event. We don't know when, but I don't think it's a if situation. I think it's a matter of when and where. And so we need to make sure we have everybody present. These guys rock, you know, and I don't know if you guys heard the accolade I gave you, and tough if you don't like it, but it's people like yourselves, people like the FDNY, the fellows that were on last week, my buddies Terry and Jimmy that were on last week, and for this community, these wonderful people I call the 9/11 family, that we need to forge forward, be a witness for those that can't talk anymore, you know, and so I can't thank you guys enough for stepping up to the plate like this.
Yeah,
absolutely, Claudia. And as far as Vic and I go, we can't thank you enough for the work that you are doing now and that you continue to do to bring this to light. It's really important. And to Reagan Radio, it's greatly appreciated that we were invited to speak.
Well, we appreciate you being on, and of course you're going to be heard now for the next week or so on 8:00 in the morning. Of course, Claudia, I'll get it edited some, and then I'll get it forwarded to her to where she can get it out to her network and like a podcast. And Jeff informed me that it's Vic, not Dick. Sorry about that, Vic.
That's all right. It happens all the time.
My ears are, my hearing isn't as good as what they once were, but I care. To me, the key I think there should be just a way to be over Thanksgiving weekend. I know that there are parades and events all around the country, and I'm sure your departments, all of your departments, have been on call, no matter where you are really in the world for the most part, because of what's going on with these extreme folks. I would call it a pretty successful weekend, an amazingly successful weekend, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely. And we're all sitting at the edge of our seat, waiting for the next, excuse the term, but bomb to drop. And we've been very lucky, very thankful this Thanksgiving season.
I'm just blown away with what you guys have to be prepared for, and thank God that you are prepared for the worst case scenario. But whenever the worst case scenario doesn't happen, something happened to where people get intimidated enough to where things didn't initiate. And
you know, folks got to remember that these were the people that were running in. You know, we ran over there to clean up the site, to look for remains, and initially, and even when Vic got on scene, you know, we were still in a rescue mission. It wasn't recovery for several weeks later. We were still very hopeful that we were going to find people in those pockets, those elevators that he mentioned. And sadly we didn't, but we went in. And so the question, again, comes full circle. Where is Congress and the Senate for us? You know, the new House Speaker, Paul Ryan, has come out and supported us. He has called on his committee heads, the Judiciary Chairperson, who we've talked about, Bob Goodlatte, and the Energy and Commerce Chairman, Fred Upton, to start ironing out details to get this passed before the end of the year. Now, there's a lot more, of course, involved to that discussion. They're coming up with Representative Pete King out of New York. He's a Republican who's been a huge supporter, just an amazing guy. And they've come out and they're going back and forth now with Goodlatte on an agreeable solution to what he's proposed, to what we've proposed. And the bottom line is that the vast majority, and that includes Republicans, are backing our permanent extension for Zadroga. And that's what we need, is the permanent extension. So what I would urge the folks today to do, go to our website. You can see all the updates, all the new articles. We gave instructions on how to do that here a couple of weeks ago. Go to the website. You'll find out more about Tony's organization for the San Francisco Cancer Foundation, Firefighters Cancer Foundation. You'll find out what's going on, how people can register for the World Trade Center Health Program. Did you hear that, Vic?
Absolutely.
You got to get these other guys on board. And so go to our website, and a lot of this stuff is explained through articles and these wonderful radio broadcasts. And people can get the skinny on the most current updates on what's going on. And in the meanwhile, I would ask everyone to continue calling your representatives. Continue calling Goodlatte's office. He's in Virginia. His number's on our website. Call these people and say, they went in. We need to be there for them now. Quit doing this back and forth on how much you want to give us on. We're not asking for that much. We've already gone through that. Do the right thing. Isn't that what you're called to do as an elected representative? Is to do the right thing for America? I don't care that you're in Virginia. This was a nationwide event. And we got Virginians sick too. So please, if everybody would call Goodlatte's office, continue to thank Paul Ryan for supporting us and moving this forward. Get on Mitch McConnell to move it out in the House, and we can get this done. They want to put it on. They want to tack it on. They think the best way is to tag it on to the omnibus bill that's coming out, where everything quits getting funded by December 11th. And Representative King, along with others that are working on this bill, feel that getting it on with that might be the best way to move us forward and have this done with by the end of the year. And we need this now.
I heard Paul Ryan say that there's funding until February something. Is that right?
Yeah, they figure on the World Trade Center Health Program portion of the bill, there's funding that should be good until January, February. But you've got responders who are going to be left out dry with no health coverage. And you've got doctors and nurses. It's just like, okay, if you heard next week that you weren't going to have a job a few months down the line, what would you be doing right now? You're going to be looking for a new job.
Right.
So we're going to lose those skilled, experienced healthcare providers that we've already got on board because, they need to work too. Everybody's got to feed their families.
Yep. And
and
that's why it's important to talk about this, to understand it from the people that are living it.
We need to pass it now. Just can't wait.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, can you give both of those bills again, Claudia?
Sure. It's on the House side, it's H.R. 1786, and on the Senate side, it's S928. And again, folks can get all that information from our website's the Zadroga reauthorization page. Everything's there. And we have links for everything else for responders and such to reach out and get on board with the World Trade Center Health Program, and they really should move forward with that. We'll work out the program. We're going to get this legislation passed. I'm going to remain positive that people are going to do the right thing by us. So get on that health program. It helps you. It helps everybody, to be a part of that.
Okay, I want to make sure that I have this right. It's H.R. 1786.
Correct.
Okay, what I'm doing, I'm typing that into a browser, and I'm looking for that. And ladies and gentlemen, you can do the same thing. You can click on that bill, okay, which takes you right to it, and then you can take that URL address and encourage your families to communicate with their politicians. And I'm copying that to Reagan Radio Network's Facebook page right now. And it's just that quick that you're able to do something like this and encourage people to call their politicians. So
And the individual bills and the links to them are all on the website, too.
Okay. Well, guys, Dick and Tony, or Vic and Tony, anything else you'd like to say, to mention to the audience out there?
Just to once again wrap it up on our end, we're again thankful that you gave us the ability to speak this morning, and really thankful for Claudia again for the work that she's doing. It's extremely important for everybody in our profession that they're taken care of. Again, like Claudia said, we're the ones that are running into the buildings when everybody else is running out. And when the stuff hits the fan again, and it will, again, the firefighters will be the first one on the scene.
And we thank you. Just imagine, ladies and gentlemen, these guys didn't do that. Just imagine. They're going to do it. That's who they are. That's what they're. But they need to feel the love. They need to feel the support, because we certainly get it in reality, in everyday life, wherever these firefighters provide a service for their communities. So,
remember also, because this is important, President Bush, when 9/11 hit us, he was down at the site. He went to the World Trade Center, he went to all the attack sites. But he stood on the pile with Bob Beckwith, who was a retired FDNY at the time, and stood on that pile with the bullhorn. That's the famous picture everybody sees all the time, and promised us that he was going to be doing the right thing. And whether that meant going to war or whatever it meant at the time, that needs to continue now for those that were down there. Because I'll tell you what, I can hardly imagine, in my mind's eye, seeing a bunch of politicians down there doing a bucket brigade. But we did it, and we're sick because of it. We're lied to. And now even, former President Bush needs to speak out for us to do the right thing.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So, Pres Bush, really, every single politician needs to me, what's most meaningful with politicians, if they would read the information, get completely engulfed in what the bill supports, and understand what the folks went through, what the firefighters, the first responders have actually gone through, and to where they're making an intelligent decision. And then they'll be more passionate to communicate with others. So, come on, guys, let's wake up here and go to Reagan Radio Networks or 9-11 rescueworkersandfriends.org. That's Claudia's site. By the way, you'll get to listen to some nice music when you get on there too.
We can't thank you guys enough. You've given us a voice that needed to be heard, and on a regular basis. That we cannot thank you enough. God bless you both.
Well, God bless you guys. Vic and Tony, hopefully you'll come on again sometime here in the near future, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Anytime, it'd be a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia.
Okay, good night.
Night. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Claudia and Friends. We had Vic and Tony on with us from San Francisco. One is a fourth generation firefighter, and the other is a first generation with a son following his footsteps, which is incredible.